Welcome back, guys, to the FranTastic Review. I'm your host, Mello15. With me tonight, I got my disembodied voice, Jo. Like I said, this is number 4 of the FranTastic Review, dedicated to a special friend of mine, Fran, who passed away earlier this year. And I'm glad she got to see what this show was going to become while she was still alive. Today, though, we're going to review Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. I have already seen this movie before. Obviously, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I have already seen this movie, but I got to see it in theater last week. And I told you, Dustin, before I went to go see it, I was pumped, bro. Yeah, I was super pumped because I had never seen any of the original 3 movies in theater. We were like not even born yet, by the way. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like, but they re-released the special editions in the 90s and re-released them in theaters. We just never went. So the only ones I've ever seen is like the prequels and the sequels. So I was pumped going into it. I was like, okay, cool. Like the sound effects, like the Dolby experience type, the theater, right? And I was like, damn, I'm gonna be able to see what it was like to be in the 80s. Like as a kid going to the 80s, what would a Return of the Jedi be like, right? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, as a movie maker, if I was a movie maker or a filmmaker, how do you follow up Empire Strikes Back? Because Empire Strikes Back is regarded as one of the best sequels of all time, right? Like when you think about like the best sequels, just in like not even just Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back is on that list, bro. And how do you follow that movie up, right? So I'm thinking as a kid in the 80s, like going into this movie, like, bro, right, has to be crazy. And the movie was good. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as good as Empire. But the movie still had really good qualities about it that I really, really enjoyed. And to this day, a lot of my philosophy about family and not giving up on people literally comes from that movie. It literally comes from that movie. So going into it, the beginning scene when C-3PO and R2-D2 are going to Jabba's palace to try to get Han Solo out of carbonite, and Luke showing up and acting gangster like, hey, bro, y'all better give me Han Solo. Like, hey, y'all gonna give him to me? Or we're taking him by force. Chewie's in it, Lando. It was actually kind of funny because when I watched it in theater last week, seeing Leia in her slave outfit, the whole time I kept thinking like, bro, there's no way this would fly in today's day and age, right? Which sucks because that was a fun part of the movie, right? Like somebody like Jabba would put her little dumbass in a slave outfit. Hey, look sexy for me, but you know what I mean? Like, hey, put something sexy on, bro. You know what I mean? But right, like he's a gangster. He's a slug, right? Why do we have to have a politically correct gangster slug? You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna put her in a bikini. I'm sorry, like put this on real quick. Bro. I'm trying to see some cheek, but and Salacious Crumb. I actually have Salacious Crumb action figure or like a toy up here. You see him hanging on my router. Yeah, so it's funny seeing Salacious Crumb like laughing at all the jokes that Jabba says and shit. It was good to see Boba Fett, and which is funny because they actually really underutilized Boba Fett in this movie. Like I'm gonna say this: if you're watching this review, by the way, of this FranTastic Review, you've most likely seen this movie. So I'm hoping I'm not spoiling anything for you. But spoiler alert: Boba Fett dies when they're near the Sarlacc pit. I don't know if you remember that partisan. Mm-hmm. He dies in this movie. He dies pretty early on, and like to me, that was like, I don't know if George knew how big Boba Fett was going to get later on, like how big of a cult following he would get. But Boba Fett almost could have been one of the main villains of the movie, besides Vader and the Emperor, right? Like you could have had Luke up at the Death Star with the Emperor and Vader, and on the ground on Endor, the Forest Moon of Endor, you could have Han, Leia, Han and Leia versus Boba Fett. Then you got Lando and them, like, facing the TIE fighters trying to get into the Death Star's defenses. But hey, I don't think George knew how big of a cult following Boba Fett would have, but it was kind of funny because, like, he just dies so quick, right? It's like, okay, like, you built him up to be this badass bounty hunter in the Empire, and he just dies hella quick. But, I mean, that's, like, a really nitpicky part of my critique of the movie.
That happens with a lot of characters, though. Just off the top of my head, that happens with like everybody from fucking Stranger Things. And I think the reason why they get so big is because they died early. So maybe he did Boba Fett a favor.
Yeah. And you actually got me an action figure one time, a pure white Boba Fett. I
That was
still
from
have it.
Paul.
Huh?
That was from Paul.
No, you gave that to me.
From Paul.
Paul gave me the pure white Boba Fett?
That one right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was a gift from you, bro.
No. I mean, it was a gift from me, from him.
Oh. Okay. Well, either way.
Like, he gave it to me.
Well, I didn't know that was from Paul. That's actually cool that we're finding that out together on camera. I mean, you knew, but I didn't know. But so this whole time, I thought my brother gave me a gift. It was a pure white Boba Fett gift, and I love it because, well, not only am I a huge Star Wars nerd, that was supposed to be Boba Fett's original outfit in Return of the Jedi. He was supposed to get an all white outfit, but they decided to go against it. So that's why when you gave that to me, I was like, oh wow, you gave me a piece of history. But coming to find out, you didn't give that to me. Someone else did. And I mean, this whole you should have just said it was you, bro. You know, what I mean, I don't know why
I
you
can't do him like that.
I can't. Yeah, but yeah.
Maybe him dying, dude. Maybe that's what he needed. Maybe that was the character growth he needed.
Did you? So, what did you think about the Ewoks? Were you a fan of the Ewoks ever, or did you think it was kind of like, this is kind of the start of where George starts to put unnecessary things in Star Wars?
No, I didn't really have any.
No, I didn't really care about the Ewoks either. Like, I don't hate them. Like, a lot of people did hate them when that movie came out. I don't hate the Ewoks. I think it's just kind of like, you know, originally it was supposed to be on Kashyyyk with like the Wookiees, which I thought would have been cool. But well, if you've seen the Star Wars Christmas special or the Star Wars special, let's just say, good thing they didn't add the Wookiees because it was not a good. but yeah, the movie. My only critique is like there's a lot of parts that kind of drag on, and because you know what part we have to get to, right? The part that's the most important is Luke and Vader fighting, okay, and the Emperor too. The Emperor, the whole Emperor Vader Luke dynamic. We know that's where the movie ends, so the filmmaker's like, okay, what do we put in the middle, right? And so that's probably why a lot of the middle towards the middle endish parts dragged a lot for me, was because like it's like, hey, we just gotta like have these Ewoks throw rocks. And I thought it was cool though, because like when they take them as prisoner to the Ewok camp and Luke like lifts C-3PO up and they think he's a god, I thought that was funny, because if you went to a planet that was like that and they had no idea what that stuff was, you would look like a god to those people, or like to the creatures on that planet. I thought that was cool. And this is the movie where Luke goes back to Dagobah and he like sees Yoda one more time, and you know Yoda's dying, and Yoda's like, he asks Yoda like, hey, is Vader really my father? And he tells him the truth about it, and Yoda's like, oh, so Vader told you, right? He told you. He finds out that he has a twin sister. He finds out it's Leia, because Obi-Wan ends up telling him. And it was funny because there was a part in the movie where there's so many lessons, and this is why I like Star Wars. By the way, there's so many lessons that are added to this, bro. Like, hey, you left your training early to go save your friends. You know, like you shouldn't have done that. You know, you weren't ready to handle the burden of finding out that this guy was your father, and like you weren't ready for that. And I feel like a lot of us as teenagers and especially like late teens, you know, as you're growing older, you go through stuff like that. You have a lot of your older family members or older friends telling you like, hey, don't do this. This is wrong. But like the best way to learn in life is to do it by yourself. Honestly, I know a lot of people won't like hearing that, but if you do it by yourself, like you'll learn better, in my opinion. So Luke kind of went through the same thing that we went through as kids. Like Luke, yeah, he shouldn't have left, but now he knows better next time. And now he knows what to do better next time. And he got more experience doing it that way versus staying behind and possibly not even being able to defeat anybody. So I enjoyed that part of the movie. You know, Obi-Wan shows up as a Force ghost and is like, from a certain point of view, I didn't lie to you, which is funny because like everybody has parents or someone older in your life who does that, bro. Like from a certain point of view, I mean, I did tell you the truth from a certain point of view. You know, so I thought it was cool that like Luke kind of goes through similar things that we go through as we're growing into our adulthood. You know, like you'll ask your parents something and they're like, hey, I mean, I didn't technically lie to you, bro. Like from a certain point of view, I didn't. Thought that was hilarious. Now, like I said, the movie kind of drags, but in theater, I felt like the dragging parts weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, because obviously I'm enjoying the experience of the theater, and I'm sitting there like, you know what, man, these weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. Like, not at all. right? Now we get into the best parts where like Vader and Luke goes to Vader, and Vader's like, "Hey, I'm gonna take you to the Emperor," and this is basically what has to happen. And this is why I believe, even though I still say and we're gonna get into our list later because we're gonna do a Star Wars movie ranking list later in the episode, and this is why although Empire is my favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi arguably has one of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars ever. Like it has not only does it have my favorite lightsaber fight, but the dynamic between Luke and his dad is just like it's so emotional for me. And I don't know why. I don't even have a dad. Right? Like I didn't really grow up with a dad. Like I don't know my dad. You know, me and Justin don't really have a relationship with him, but I can only imagine if I was in Luke's position and I find out everything I lived was a lie. This guy's really my dad, and you know, I feel like I could save him. Like I feel like there's still good in him, right? Because you're learning to be a Jedi, and that's what Jedis do, right? So when he's like, "Hey, if I'm not gonna turn bad, Dad, I'm gonna try to save you. I know there's good in you," right? And Vader's like, "There isn't. It's too late for me." And you can kind of tell the conflict between father and son. Like Vader wants to try to convince him, like, "No, there's no saving me," but I think deep down, like after all the bad that he did as a person, the one person that was able to bring him back was his son. And bro, what dad wouldn't be able to say that? I don't know if you connect your personal life to some of the movies that you watch, but I can only imagine that if you were like a huge piece of shit evil villain, you know, and like you were just going across the galaxy doing crazy bad things, right? And you see Noah for the first time since he's a kid or whatever, right? And he's like, "Hey, Dad, I'm gonna save you. Like, I know that there's still good in you." I feel like your inner father would be like, "Damn, bro, what?" Like, I feel like Vader fell to like because when he turned to the dark side in Episode 3, he did it to save his wife. Like, he didn't do it for a bad reason. I feel like if most people thought this would save my wife from dying, he probably didn't have to kill younglings, but I mean, but regardless, I feel like most people would do what it takes to save their wife and to save their family because she was pregnant in that movie. You know, most people would probably do the extreme to save their wife and kids. So, you know, hearing Luke tell him that is when he probably was like, you know, why am I doing any of this? Like, I'm in a suit. I can't really see him with my own eyes. I can't really breathe properly. Like it probably hit him like a ton of bricks. Like what is happening right now? Like I have my grown ass son in front of me telling me he's gonna save me, and he probably didn't think he was able to be saved at this point. Like he had done so much evil up to this point. He's probably like questioning whether or not he was even savable, right? And like the Emperor too, the Emperor's like egging Luke on, like, you know, strike me down, and like, you know, doing like you will turn to the dark side like your father, and like, you know, and like it's like the ultimate temptation, bro. Like take your father's place at my side, you know, like, and it's like it's everybody's temptation of the power, like the role you're gonna play. Like this power is probably going to be immense full power, and I get to be on the side of like the Emperor. I mean, most Jedi in like Star Wars lore, they don't usually say no when that pops up, and in most movies that doesn't happen. You know, the good guy usually does take the bait. He wanted Luke to strike him down in cold blood. You know, the Emperor's kind of smart in the movie too. Like, you know, I set up your pitiful bed. You know, like it's like he tricked his friends. His friends were going into a trap. The Death Star was operational. They heard that it wasn't operational. So like, you know, the whole like he was really like his ego in the movie was crazy, bro. Like, sit down, Emperor Palpatine. Like his ego was like, yo, pitiful bed. Look out the window, boy, and see your friends get destroyed. Like, oh yeah, that's gonna make me turn. You know, I actually thought that while watching it in theater. I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna make me turn. You killed all my friends? I guess I have no choice to join you. Like when you try to get someone to join the dark side, the last thing I'm gonna do is make you angry. You know, like when you're trying to get someone to join your company, like, hey,
isn't that the whole point though? Is to like make you do bad things in the name of that.
Yeah, I guess like as some from and
Like if I can get you so mad and I can turn you into a murderer, like you being a murderer is gonna mean
you've succumbed to the dark side, bro.
yeah.
Like you gave yourself. I just felt like the same thing for Anakin. I felt like if the Emperor would have just let him have certain things, that like being evil wouldn't have been that big of a deal. You know, like, hey, we're evil. Like, I want you to be evil, but at the same time, like, hey, maybe we can have your friends come too. You know, like I just felt like always the bad guy always has to do like the most extreme shit and still wants you to be on their side. It's like, you know. But yeah, so getting to the end of the movie to me, I don't want to say this, man, because I don't want to sound like an old head. I'm already going to sound like an old head when I say my Star Wars ranking list, but that to me might just be the true end of Star Wars. Now, I know the sequel still exists. There's canon past that movie, but like the sequels, they just don't feel like the end. This movie had like an end. It had a proper end. They're on the forest moon of Endor. They're celebrating. I've played that song on a previous podcast before. It's like all the Ewoks are dancing and celebrating. And, you know, you feel like, hey, we just defeated the Emperor. Like, this is the definitive end. And it sucks because once we get into the movie rankings, the sequels kind of ruined this movie. So me seeing it in theater now, because now Vader and Luke fight, right? They're fighting, and there's a part where Luke keeps running around, hiding from his dad, and Vader's like, if you won't turn to the dark side, perhaps your sister will. And that just sets Luke off, and he's like, never! Right? And they get into this huge fight at the end, and Luke goes ham on his dad. Like, the music that's playing in the background is amazing. It's like, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you right now. I'm being dead ass serious with you. I cried. I was fucking crying, dude, watching that scene again. Because again, we're watching it in theater on the big screen, and I'm watching it as if I'm a kid in the 80s. I mean, Luke's going ham, cuts off his dad's hand, and the Emperor's like, good, good, you know, walking down. He looks at his dad's hand because his dad's hand has a robotic, you know, the wires and stuff, and then he looks at his own robot hand. And he's like, what? I'm going to become him. Like, what is happening right now? He turns around, throws his lightsaber, and he denounces evil. He's like, I'm not turning to the dark side. I'm a Jedi like my dad before me. And then the Emperor's like, so be it, Jedi. You know, and he starts electrocuting him. And he's like, you know, walking towards him, electrocuting him, and like Luke's begging for his dad to save him. You know, and like you could see Vader get up and kind of look at he's assessing the situation. And the best part for me is that the guy behind the suit did a really good job at acting without saying anything. You can tell the actor was conveying this, like Vader's looking around and like he knows he can't just let his fucking son die. So he picks the Emperor up and throws his ass over the railing, and the Emperor falls and dies. And it's just like a really good father-son moment when Vader's like, hey, you know, Luke's dragging him away, and he's like, take my mask off. I want to look at my son with my own eyes. You know, and he tells Luke, you were right. I can be saved. There was still good in me. My question, I've always wondered, like, bro, if like Vader would have survived, like Luke and him would have to go into hiding. Like, do you think the New Republic's just gonna let this guy like go have a house on Coruscant now? Like, just go give him a property somewhere and go retire? No, like you could have to face prison time, I'm assuming. So Luke would definitely have to go into hiding because like Vader wouldn't just be able to walk around after doing what he's done. Like, so I wonder, he's like, no, Dad, I got to save you. Like, but yeah, but life's not going to be good for us, bud, if I live through this, you know? So the ending was beautiful. The movie was beautiful. The music behind the ending was beautiful. The message, you know, denouncing evil and saving your loved one, knowing that, like, you know, you don't give up on your family, even though that my family might be a galactic murderer, you know, and it's so beautiful because, like, that was the end to me. That was a good end to Star Wars. And I feel like now the sequels kind of ruined it. The sequels really did ruin that movie's ending. So, but for my FranTastic review, I'm going to give the Return of the Jedi, I'm going to give it a fucking 9 out of 10, bro. I'm honestly going to give it a 9 out of 10. 10 would be like perfect. Like Empire to me is probably like the only 10 I would say on my list if we're going to rank them. Maybe like an 8.5 out of 10, 9 out of 10 is kind of what I'm like what I'm kind of aiming for. I would say probably 9 out of 10. I mean, like there was like a little bit of nitpicky things about the movie, but other than that, like the movie was really good, and I'm glad I got to see it in theater. It was a good experience. So, but before we end tonight, I'm excited, right? Because we're gonna get into our movies ranking list, and I actually have them on the screen, so Justin can take a look at them while I'm talking, and I'm gonna put them up here. I don't know if I'll do it one by one or just all together at the end, but because I saw this movie in theater, my list has changed because in previous episodes I have talked about a Star Wars movie ranking list, and my list has changed since then. And yes, not only because I saw Return to the Jedi in theater, but I've been watching some of the other movies leading up to that movie experience. And I feel like watching this movie in theater really changed the end of my list, like the bottom list. It really did, because I didn't have these movies at the bottom like I used to until I saw this movie in theater. And I realized, like, bro, like they really did fuck this up, right? And I'll explain that as we go along the list. So at number 1, no surprise here, Empire Strikes Back. Okay, regarded as one of the best sequels of all time in any movie media, in any fashion, from TV show to movie. Empire Strikes Back is regarded as one of the best sequels of all time, one of the biggest plot twists of all time, and he doesn't even say, Luke, I am your father. We all just made that up. He literally just says, I am your father. But all of us, we all say, Luke, I am your father, right? And but that's not what he says. Mandela effect type shit, bro. That's not what he says. So that's the plot twist. No, I'm playing. But the big plot twist that he's the dad, he's his father. The movie was good, introducing Boba Fett into the lore. Well, Boba Fett was in the holiday special, but he actually, movie wise, first movie. We get to see Lando. The movie was good, right? And Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie. It's just like, it's such a special. It always has like this, like I said earlier, it has like a really good learning moment where like Luke doesn't finish his training and he goes to save his friends. And a lot of teenagers or kids his age do that. They don't listen to their elders. They don't listen to like the people trying to tell them like the quote unquote, the quote unquote right thing to do. So, and besides that, like the lightsaber fight at that was crazy. Him and his dad, and like his hand gets cut off, and it's just like the whole, So yeah, and then so number 2, I think before number 2 wasn't this movie, but Revenge of the Sith, bro, which is the third movie in the prequels. Revenge of the Sith is not only probably one of the most quotable Star Wars movies ever. It really is probably one of the most quotable ever. But it has like the best memes, bro. I don't know if you've been on the Reddit and like Twitter like that as someone with the memes, but Revenge of the Sith has hella fire memes, bro. And that's not why it's number 2 on my list. It's just an awesome movie. I mean, every single time I watch Revenge of the Sith, I wish and I hope that the ending is different every single time, bro. I'm like, okay, maybe if I watch it this time, Anakin won't turn to the dark side. Maybe this time he won't force choke his wife. Maybe this time he doesn't end up on a pile of burning lava telling his best friend / brother that he hates him. And like that's also one of my favorite lightsaber fights of all time, is when him and Obi-Wan are fighting on Mustafar. I mean, that was crazy choreography, dude. And then the whole like, I have the high ground, and he's like, you underestimate my power. Just like, bro, raging out. I mean, what a way to go. I mean, imagine if we didn't already know what happened to Anakin, and Vader. Imagine seeing that movie. Like if episode 1 was your first Star Wars movie ever, you watch number 2, and imagine watching number 3. And you're like, what? This is what happens? Like Anakin like loses everything. I mean, in this movie, they're straight up like, yeah, you're gonna be on the council, but you're not gonna be a master. Oh, thank you for telling me that that Palpatine was the Sith Lord we've been looking for this whole time. But yeah, stay here while I go handle it. Right? I mean, that movie also had hella fire lightsaber fights, dude. With Yoda versus the Emperor, Mace Windu versus the Emperor, Anakin versus Obi-Wan. We literally got all of that in one movie. General Grievous versus Obi-Wan. Anakin versus Count Dooku. I mean, seriously, what? That movie was just, bro, that movie's fired. And I know a lot of prequel haters probably won't like that it's number 2 on my list, but it's a really enjoyable Star Wars movie, dude. And I think Hayden Christensen did a good job in that movie, and I don't really care what people think. I don't, dude. I mean, Natalie Portman didn't really do a good job, but there wasn't much for her to work with, dude. You know, she's like, you're breaking my heart. You know, you're going down a path I can't follow. You saw him kill Tusken Raiders, Padme. He said he killed the women and the children, and you still stayed with them. You knew what he was gonna do. I think deep down she knew he was a psycho, bro. But I regress. Number 3, we just did a review on this movie, Return to the Jedi. And I kind of explained in my review why Return to the Jedi would be number 3, but just the ultimate theme of family and father-son dynamic, like it's just a powerful theme for me, and it really resonates with me. So that's why Return to the Jedi is number 3 on my list. Number 4, though, is going to be A New Hope, which is the original Star Wars movie that started this whole entire following that it has. A New Hope, I like it for what it is. It's simple. It's about a story about a young man on a farm planet, on a desert planet. He's helping his uncle, and he just gets sucked into this huge big adventure, and like literally now the whole galaxy's fate is in his hands. And A New Hope just has one of those, like a hero's journey, right? It has like that, hey, look, you can just be some random kid from a farm, and now all of a sudden you're related. Well, he didn't know that in the movie, but like, we're going to teach you how to use the Force. I'm going to teach you about the Jedi, the Clone Wars, and also you're about to see some crazy shit. I can see why that movie got big. You know, and actually, I'd learned this yesterday, but George Lucas got rights for all the Star Wars sequels. He did it like, so the studio was so convinced that this movie wasn't going to do as good as they thought it was going to do, that they let him have full control and full rights to the sequels moving forward. I bet they're pissed, bro. I bet they are 100% pissed that they let that deal go through. I mean, if they would have known that this franchise would be as big as it is today, there's no way they let him do that deal, right? So George Lucas is kind of lucky that he was able to get that, because like, bro, if they would have had any knowledge that this would be as big as it was, they weren't doing that. So yeah, that's number 4, A New Hope. And it's, you know, I still think it holds up. A lot of people will probably tell you that that's like their number 1 or 2. I don't think so, but that's just me. Coming in at number 5, though, we got The Force Awakens. Now, this is probably the highest ranking sequel movie I have. I actually really did like The Force Awakens, bro. I enjoyed it. And I hate the sequels, by the way. And you're going to hear that coming from me later on in the episode, but I hate the sequels. The Force Awakens, though, the reason I have it number 5 on my list is because it sets up so much cool stuff that they didn't do, right? It sets up a lot of stuff that they should have done. And I actually like Kylo Ren. You know, he ends up, you know, obviously Ben Solo, Kylo, but I like Kylo Ren. I loved that part of it. I loved, you know, because in like the extended universe, Han Solo's son does become a Sith Lord, and he becomes one of like the most like evil, best Sith Lords of all time. I mean, like, he's doing things that are unredeemable in the extended universe. You know, killing Luke Skywalker's wife. You know, I mean, just killing, like, bro. I mean, like, if you guys read the extended universe, you know what I'm talking about. But Kylo Ren was set up in this movie because he kills his dad in this movie. I mean, they did that on purpose, bro. They wanted us to hate Kylo Ren. We see him kill Han Solo. I mean, like, bro, that's why they did that. They're trying to set him up as the ultimate bad guy, and how else you're gonna do that? And they did it. People were mad when he killed Han Solo. This is how Han Solo dies: is he gets stabbed by his son. I mean, that's fucking insane, right? And they set up a lot of cool things. They didn't follow through with it, but I enjoyed that movie, bro. I remember going to the theater with my brother, and I was in my Kylo Ren outfit. You remember that, Edison? I mean, it was exciting time. Like the time before The Force Awakens was a really exciting time for people, bro. Like, I remember buying the toys, Force Friday, bro. I was like, I wonder who this person's gonna be, and like, it was like really exciting, which ends up making me more sad thinking about the next 2 movies that come out, right? And like, you know, it just didn't live up to what I thought it was gonna be. But yeah, coming in at number 6, we have Rogue One. Now, Rogue One's a good movie too. Right? Don't get me wrong. There's not a lot of like lightsabers, and There's not a lot of Jedi and Sith and all that stuff, so it's very different from the other movies. But let's just get to the end, right? The end is why I fuck with it, and it's not because of the whole Vader hallway scene, because that was fire in theaters. Just then,
Yeah, it was.
when his lightsaber turns on and it's like red, like the crimson red's illuminating the hallway, and he just starts fucking the rebels up, bro. That was crazy, and the music behind it too. But most movies do not have the balls to kill off their main cast, bro. Never. Movies rarely do that, right? So in this movie, they die. They died in this movie. Remember Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor are like hugging and holding each other as like the wave is coming towards them and about to kill them. And he like looks at her, he's like, hey, your dad would have been proud of you. I mean, come on, dude. The most movies do not have the balls to do that. They did it, and that's what made this movie good. It was high stakes. There was a lot going on. There was big stuff going on, right? So this movie, that's why I fuck with it. This movie did something that most movies would never do, especially in this universe, because they just have a problem with killing off characters or keeping them dead, right? So, but yeah, coming in at number 7, I have The Phantom Menace. Now, I used to have this lower, actually. This was actually really, really, really low on previous lists of mine. But as I watch it, like, yeah, the Gungans are annoying and Jar Jar is annoying, but after seeing Ahmed Best, Ahmed Best, I think it's Ahmed or Ahmad, and I always butcher his name, but the actor who plays Jar Jar Binks, I've watched him in interviews and talking about like the depression he got after that movie, and like the suicidal thoughts that he was getting and all the bullying, and that's not cool, bro. So I remember watching the movie again through like a new pair of eyes, and like I appreciate Phantom Menace even more, because not only is it really cool, but like you get to see like the beginning of like how Anakin turns to the dark side, right? Like this is the very beginning where he gets sucked into the Jedi Order. The fight with Darth Maul at the end, and the music is fire. I mean, the prequels have the best music out of all the Star Wars movies. I mean, the prequels had crazy good music. I was always a fan of the music. So when Darth Maul's like, we had never seen a double-bladed lightsaber before. Remember the trailer that came out to that movie? And Darth Maul, like his double blade turns on and everybody's like freaking out, like, what? That can do that, bro? So it was cool to see that. Like, it was like the end fight was like cool, because like I don't think at that point we had ever seen two people take on one person, or one person take on two people, and actually keep up with them. So yeah, a lot of people have this movie lower on their list, because I have mine at number 7. But I mean, the movie was good. Was it bad? Yeah, the writing was pretty bad. The dialogue too, but for some reason it just holds a special place in my heart, because we grew up during the prequels.
Yeah.
That was our Star Wars. And, as a kid, I didn't give a fuck about the Gungans and how annoying Jar Jar was. It was just a good movie. And what? I'm going to listen to a bunch of adults who just like gatekeep things. And like, that's kind of what we're doing with the prequels now. I'll get into that a little later. But I mean, the sequels, sorry. That's what we're doing with the sequels now. And I'll get into that a little later. But yeah, number 8, I have Solo. Now, I enjoyed the movie. Was it the best? No. But I had fun watching it. It was one of those Star Wars movies that didn't have a lot of Jedi and Sith things going on, no lightsaber stuff. Darth Maul is at the end of that one, and they set him up to be like the leader of the crime syndicate. Yeah, that's just all I got to say about it. Like, Solo was fun. The guy who played Han Solo, I mean, I didn't think he did that bad. He didn't do a bad job. I mean, Childish Gambino as Lando was pretty cool. Like, I think he did a good job as Lando. I mean, other than that, yeah, I mean, was it the best? No, like I said, but I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. Number 9, we got Attack of the Clones. Now, I actually enjoy this movie, but yeah, I mean, the dialogue was pretty bad. The writing was pretty bad. This is the movie where Anakin's really whiny. Like, it's the sand and it gets everywhere. And like, it's kind of like, what? I mean, we knew there had to be a love scene between him and Padme, right? Like, their love had to grow. This is the motivation for why he becomes Vader. They have kids together, obviously. So we obviously knew there had to be romance and romantic scenes in this movie, but it just wasn't really written good. But I still enjoyed it. There's Jango Fett, Count Dooku. We got the Separatists. We got Obi-Wan, Count Dooku reveals a lot to Obi-Wan in this movie too, which is like, he ends up revealing that like the Senate is controlled by a Sith Lord. Like, bro, you're dry snitching for sure. I don't think Emperor Palpatine wanted you to say that to them, but right. We see Yoda fight for the first time in this movie. He fights Count Dooku at the end. That's the first time we'd ever seen Yoda fight, right? Because in the originals you don't see that. So the movie, again, it is pretty low on my list, but I enjoyed it. And again, I'm a prequel kid. I grew up during the prequels, and I'm not trying to look at it through like an angry old heads up point of view. I'm trying to view it as I did then, and I really enjoyed that movie. But as an adult, I can critique it and say, hey, it wasn't really that good, right? The last two though. So at number 10, I have The Rise of Skywalker, and at number 11, I have The Last Jedi. And I'm gonna lump these two together because they go together, right? But after watching Return to the Jedi in theater, you realize that, bro, they ruined Luke's arc. They did. They ruined the ending to that movie, right? He's willing to save his dad, and there's light in my dad. I can see the light, and I'm gonna save you. A galactic murderer. But in episode 8, I have a bad vision or a dream about my nephew, and now I gotta turn into a hermit and denounce everything I've ever done. I'm not gonna save nobody. I'm not gonna join the fight. Leave my planet, Rey. Leave. I'm gonna kill my nephew now. I mean, and he's talking about the hubris of the Jedi. It's like, bro, that's not Luke Skywalker, bro. I'm sorry. That's not Luke. Maybe in the beginning of the movie have him like that, right? But what we wanted to see in episode 8, right? That's why the hype for episode 8 was so big, because we're finally get to see Grandmaster Luke kicking ass, bro. We're finally going to see what we've been reading about in the EU. We're finally going to be able to see Luke being a badass, which we didn't get that. We got that in Mandalorian season 2. I've shown you that, right? Where Luke shows up at the end of Mando season 2 in like Wreck Shop. That's what we wanted to see in episode 8. That's what we wanted, right? I know I sound like I'm getting angry because I am, but I'm trying to be logical here, and I'm trying to be level-headed, right? I still enjoyed parts of The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. I still enjoyed a lot of those, a lot of the movies, a lot of those 2 movies. But bro, after seeing Return of the Jedi, my dad, I'm gonna save him, but my nephew, I have a bad dream about my nephew, and I'm gonna denounce everything now. And you, bro, you know what was shocking? When we went to go see The Last Jedi, and yes, I do have The Last Jedi at the bottom of my ranking list. Yeah, I do. Nothing to do with the actors themselves, nothing to do with Kelly Marie, because like Kelly Marie Tran and all them, like, were getting off social media because people were bullying them. Nothing to do with the actors at all. You guys just did what was written for you, okay? You guys had no control you had no control over what Rian Johnson or J.J. Abrams were going to do with these movies. So I don't really blame you guys. You guys you did what you were given, right? But one of the most shocking moments, bro, is when like Rey hands Luke the lightsaber and he fucking just chucks it behind him and just walks off. That was strike one when I watched that movie. I was like, okay, maybe there's a reason. Luke has titty milk all over him from that. Remember the animal? He's like just has titty milk all over his face and like his beard. I'm like, okay, all right, let's just give it a chance. Just give it a chance. That's what that whole movie was. The whole movie was me trying to convince my fucking self that what I was seeing wasn't bad. I was like, okay, they want to save these little horsies from Canto Bight. Cool. Let's just have 30 minutes of the movie be about fucking Finn and Rose saving horsies and on a casino planet, which is one of the worst sequences in Star Wars ever, by the way. And then Snoke is just like, he's just like, it's like a repeat of the Emperor, which is like, okay, cool. If he ends up being a strand cast of the Emperor anyways, so whatever. But when Kylo kills him, right, because it's like we're trying to subvert expectations, it's like, okay, so now Kylo's the real bad guy that they're aiming for. Okay, cool. Now, what I would have done, right, imagine how crazy this would have been going into episode 9, okay? Luke doesn't die, okay? Hear me out. Luke doesn't die in this movie. He stops being a hermit pussy, right? And then at the end, when Kylo reaches his hand out to Rey, she takes his fucking hand and goes off with him. leading us into episode 9, right? So now the whole like theory and speculation going into 9 is like, whoa, bro, what's about to happen? Like, what is Luke gonna do? Is he gonna try to like kill his nephew and Rey? Is he gonna get help to do it? Like, what is Rey gonna do? Is Rey really gonna turn bad, or is she tricking him? Right? Like, imagine, bro. He hands it. He takes. He puts his hand out, and Rey goes with him instead of like, no, I don't know, Kylo. I don't know what to do.
Kylo.
I don't know. She's like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, I see the gut in you, even though I just met you. I don't know. It's like, bro, what? I'm sorry. Take his hand, Rey. Like when he had this shirt off in the movie, and she told him to put her shirt on, he was just like hella yoked. Remember with the black pants on? And bro, once I saw that, go with him, Rey. I mean, you know what I mean? Go with like remember we kind of said earlier, it's like the behavior of teenagers when like they'll do bad stuff. Yeah, Rey, go run off with the dark-haired emo kid. Go run off and do bad things for a little bit, because you're gonna come home eventually and we'll settle things, right? That's what she could have done. Because then going into episode 9, I'm like, okay, bro, they can't ruin this anymore, but they do. They do ruin it. They do ruin it, bro. They not only do they bring the Emperor back, and it's like, and then one of the worst signs in Star Wars ever when Poe goes, somehow Emperor Palpatine returned. Somehow, right? Carrie Fisher was dead, so they had to they had to kill Leia off in their own way, and I understand that part. They bring Harrison Ford back for some like weird dream sequence where he's like, son, come back to the light, and then Kylo's like, I can't, Dad. My hair's wet. But what about Rey and Luke? And it's just like, and then Adam Driver doesn't talk for like the last 20 minutes of the movie. Literally doesn't say a fucking word, bro. Doesn't even say a fucking word. You don't even see him at the end as a Force ghost, right? And at the end when they're like, what is your name? And she's like, it's Rey Skywalker. Like she like looks around and like the camera closes it on her. And she's like, it's Rey Skywalker. And like the lady should be like, no, you smell like a Palpatine, and just walked away. But I'm like, okay, how do they ruin episode 6 even more? Because Anakin fulfilled the prophecy and destroyed the Sith, right? That he did that. He destroys the Sith. But what ends up happening is that they have Rey do it now, right? They didn't have Anakin return as a Force ghost, which they should have had him return as a Force ghost. Rey does it. Now Rey's the one that destroys the Sith. What about the fucking prophecy, bro? So by them doing that in episode 9, they literally undid everything about episode 6, right? They literally undid everything. And it's just annoying as fuck. Like, these people say they're Star Wars fans, but they allowed that? Okay, you could still have Emperor Palpatine come back. You could still do all of that. Have Anakin come back as a Force ghost, bro. Have him help Rey destroy the Emperor. So he's still the one that destroys the Sith. He still does his duty like the prophecy says, and you don't prop up Rey as some like magical feminist icon who destroyed the Sith. And that's just what it seems like what they did. So that's why those 2 movies at the bottom of my list. So you guys comment below, what is your Star Wars movie ranking? I'm actually really excited if you guys comment, because a lot of times some of the videos get comments, but this one I really need you guys, like if you're brave enough to do so, comment with your list below of the movies and let me and Justin know what your ranking is. And if you guys think similar to me, let's talk. If you don't, I'm actually willing to have a conversation with people who like the sequels, because I don't necessarily like hate them. There's a lot wrong with them, and I just didn't rock with a lot of the stuff they chose to do. But yeah, that's my take on it. That was the FranTastic review, guys. The 4th episode. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, peace.